Hey guys, welcome back to the Believe, Be Real, Be Bold podcast. I am honored to have one of my clients in the house, Dr. Steve Berkowitz. How are you?
Doing okay.
Just okay. It sounds like you're busy over there at Anschutz Medical Center.
We're busy. Yeah, there's lots of things to set up and organize and make sure we're supporting everybody who needs it.
That's right. But you are quarantined at home, and that's best for everybody.
We're staying at home, and in general, Anschutz has sent everybody to work virtually from home, other than those people who are on the front lines in the hospital and so forth.
hmm And that's a nice feature to have for everyone's safety, but also for everyone's approach to their position at the hospital. If they're not essential, then they don't necessarily have to be put at risk right now.
That's absolutely correct.
hmm
Um, we'll see what happens. They're starting to have discussions about uh, deployments for people who have the capacity to do some of the work and to fill in as needed.
hmm And as a psychiatrist at the hospital, what are you tasked with? What's on your plate right now?
Well, we have set up support lines for all people who are working on the campus, as well as within the University of Colorado health system statewide. Um, and that's basically a call-in line for people who need some support. We have support groups that are set up for various of the units in the hospitals. So people who are in the ICU, people who are in the emergency department, and other areas where they are, they're seeing a lot of patients and starting to feel stressed and overwhelmed. We're doing sort of, how to support yourself 101 kinds of things with for grand rounds in various departments. Obviously, we're doing all sorts of things for students. We are organizing some groups now for grief, with the reality that that's going to be an issue, and then doing some work with the state, providing them with basics and information for various aspects of the population, um, pediatricians, so on and so forth. So yeah, we're keeping pretty busy.
Sounds like it. What does the medical staff need most, coming from like mental health support status right now?
Yeah, most is a tough one. I would say the thing that a lot of people are wondering about is for those folks who are on the front lines and working with patients and in the hospital, trying to figure out that balance between protecting their family, being available to their family, and managing all the various aspects. Homeschooling has become quite an issue already after a couple of days. So that's been a big one. And then I think, just generally, these are not people who, by and large, have ever experienced feeling scared just by going to work. And so this is an incredibly new experience just to feel afraid. And helping them with the facts, and to recognize that some of that fear is unwarranted, but also, really concrete things that you can do to kind of de-stress and manage.
hmm And they can't be expected to work 24/7. So they do have to get home and get rest and get fueled up with proper nutrition, which is a key component of mental health. So how do they balance that, with risk factors and also just their energy level and their mental health?
I think it's really difficult. People are doing the best they can. I think, in normal circumstances, they're working 12-hour shifts. Right now, I think they're working probably more like 14 if they're lucky. And So they're really trying to figure that out. And, we have been recommending really instituting, a really kind of rigid schedule during their shifts for them, where breaks are mandatory, meals are mandatory. There's a pattern by which exactly who's backing you up when, and really trying to implement that. I think some of the units have done that pretty well, others less well, but I think it's generally appreciated that that's really a requirement. We use this kind of approach called creating a resiliency plan. So we ask people to basically develop a 7-day plan that structures all of those sorts of things in, how to connect with people effectively, ensuring that you're sleeping on a regular schedule as best as possible, eating. We also add, laughing. We think, there's a lot of literature that laughing is actually really, really helpful for stress. And so we and others have been trying to send out some regular kind of daily jokes or nice things for folks.
Yeah, I think I'm on that email list too, because you are gracious enough to share some of the memes, and that video you gave me yesterday was really kind of a bright spot in my day, because I can have empathy for the staff over there, but we're also facing things at home too, and you're right, levity is a big benefit right now, a big positive in our lives.
Yeah. I've been tuning into Comedy Central a lot myself.
Instead of the news. Good job.
Instead of the news, yeah. It's for those of you who remember Patch Adams, that was the basis of his medical setting, and he did. They did some pretty interesting research on how humor and laughter really helps. There's even laughter yoga, as many of you know.
Sounds like everyday yoga for me, because I'm so uncoordinated and stiff and not very mobile when it comes to yoga.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I'm pretty much the same way, as you well know.
Yeah, that's right. So the 7-day plan for the hospital staff is really to keep them as healthy as they possibly can, so that they can continue to serve their environment. And is there something that we can learn outside the hospital and take away from that?
Oh, I think it's a really useful approach for everybody to really think about. So we base this plan on our research and research with others that really grew actually out of Katrina more than anything else, which, as some people may remember, had really went on for years. It wasn't a brief disaster. It was years of impact. And so we concentrate on what we think are the 5 crucial elements, which are calm, efficacy, a sense of future, connectedness. The thing I think is most important, safety. Yeah, of course, a sense of safety.
Mm-hmm. And why is connectedness tops on your list?
Well, it's tops on my list because as social animals and human beings use other human beings to really calm themselves, help themselves stay within a kind of decent, reasonable space. And we learn a lot from one another, both emotionally and, intellectually. And if you think about what human beings do when they're stressed or when they're really happy, we like to come together and celebrate, right? Broncos win the Super Bowl, and, everybody's in the streets wanting to be with each other. Somebody passes away, everybody goes to the funeral to support each other and be with one another. And that's, a little bit of a challenge these days. But we can certainly do it using technology and sharing and supporting. And I think myself, like many of us, have been connecting with people who we may not usually connect with at this time. And I'm sitting here going, why didn't we do that before? Why didn't I talk to those folks on the East Coast via Zoom rather than, texting or phone calls and things like that? So I think we all find it very useful. And, we are asking people to schedule in, as part of this resiliency plan, a period of time where they are connecting, whether it's, within their nuclear family, for lack of a better term, or, with friends and family, somewhere else. Um, but again, that's part of the scheduling of creating a resiliency plan, is really scheduling in these things on a daily basis as best as possible.
I can totally relate to keeping a routine, some semblance of routine. We were meeting at 6 a.m. Now we're meeting at 8 a.m. Well, my morning routine needs to stay the same, if not improve at this time, because I technically have created more hours in my day if my body's still waking me up at 5:30 or 6 every day.
Right.
And you're not from Colorado, you are from back east. And I kind of have an idea of why we are connecting more via Zoom and FaceTime and calls instead of just text. And that kind of brings up the question of, are we needing a little bit more support at this time than ever before in our lives?
I think there's no doubt that the context and circumstances, there is a baseline, whether we perceive it or not, of feeling stressed, feeling somewhat endangered. And so, yes, connecting is more important, I think, than ever. And I think, interestingly, we do like touch. We do like seeing people. We do like looking at expressions. So, video chatting is the next best thing to being there, so to speak.
I can totally get on board. There's a huge rush in the dating world right now to start to connect virtually and to connect authentically as well, like an improved kind of approach to dating where we get to the nitty gritty real quick, because I think that that's one way that our needs can be met right now.
Yeah, well, emotional connection is, very, very important for all of us. And I think, dating is a way of emotionally connecting, and hopefully enjoying that emotional connection, or quickly, realizing it's not the one you want. So yeah, and what an opportunity, to both be quick and to slow things down at the same time, right? You get to know somebody pretty intensively under these circumstances, while at the same time not feeling the pressure of sexual interactions and connection, but more of an emotional one. And it'll be interesting to see if that approach actually has an impact, when this is all over.
Well, here's hoping, because it brings up the authentic conversation within our community more often. But let's go back to one of the other 5 components, and that's dealing with the future.
Yes.
How do we put it in perspective that none of us know what the future holds, and also still kind of maintaining a positive attitude about it?
You just said that none of us knows what the future holds. And that's always true. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, that that's not so different, for most of us. Now, there's a meta issue, regarding the economy and, what life in the country is going to look like. And I think that is hard. For instance, making a weekly plan is saying, I believe there's a future. But there are other things right now that I think are really right out there, which is, do something like start planting, flowers or vegetables. It's spring. It's a little early for most of us, but you can do it on the indoors. They will show themselves in the future, in the summer and late spring. Or how about just, given, the time of year it is, do a little scavenger hunt on your way around for things popping up like crocuses or buds, um, things like that, that really we do recognize as the future. And then make plans for when this is over, whether it's a vacation or getting together with people. It's okay to say, okay, well, we're not going to make a plan until June, but we're going to make them, right? Or self-improvement plans, right? God, what a great opportunity for me to take that course that I really needed to take and will help my career or help me. So, doing those sorts of things and planning for, the inevitability that this is going to end is having a sense of future.
I love that you put it into perspective about like learning something new as well as like personally developing yourself in preparation for the future. What do you say to somebody right now that is hesitant to start a new program that obviously is going to cost money on this? Well, we don't know if we're going to make a paycheck next month or not. Are you just saying go ahead, bite the bullet, and go all in?
I think everybody has to weigh that for themselves and what their particular situation is. Um, but I will say there are an enormous amount of things right now out there that are very inexpensive or even free, that you can take advantage of. I just got sent a list of online courses that used to be, fairly prohibitive, and now they're very cheap or even free from, Ivy League schools or business courses, certifications. So they're out there, and I think that's because many recognize that people need this, and not only is it a good distraction, frankly, but again, the idea that you're thinking about the rest of your life.
Yeah, a good distraction could be something creative. Like I had thought for a long time of, do I just table the podcast right now? Do I just kind of tighten everything up at home and not expand at all? And I thought about that for a good day, and I knew that my creative process through creating the podcast episodes and the images and the graphics go along with it is actually a healthful thing for me right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think digging into your hobbies, your avocations, things that you get enjoyment out of are crucial. And while it might be a little harder to take that hike, or that we might want to take, or um, in your case, it's hard to do some jujitsu sparring, but there are a range of other things that we can do. Sorry.
Thank God we got our mats this past week.
I think there are a lot of opportunities for people to either pursue something that they haven't in the past for many reasons, or to dive in more deeply to one of their interests or passions. So I think there is that opportunity if you have the time right now, and I think more things are available than ever as people are stepping up. Um, I think, again, as I mentioned, I think the hardest thing is really for people who have kids at home that they're trying to figure out how to entertain. Um, you know, uh, how do you homeschool kids in different grades and different ages when you don't know half the material yourself anyway, and the short answer is lighten up. Don't think you're gonna be the full-time teacher for each of your kids, and do the best you can.
Yeah, because life experience is an excellent teacher. So uh, a lot of play goes a long way for children, elementary school age and around that time. And just practical knowledge of like for high school kids, learning how to cook, learning how to do laundry on a routine, a 7-day plan. All of that is incorporated by leading your family while you're at home.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I'm sure that every one of us has as many things around their house or apartment that they need to get to that they haven't. And so, engaging your kids in that, engaging them, and how to also, what are their recommendations to maintain, a calm environment. Teaching them to cook, teaching them, cooking is a great way to learn all sorts of things, chemistry, even units of measure, things like that. So there, all these practical things are can be both enjoyable and educational at the same time. And I think that's what people have to lean on more than what they've the traditional homeschooling methodologies.
Mm-hmm. And I can imagine that we need to forgive ourselves and give ourselves a lot of grace as parents and as adults who are experiencing something brand new. We're all in this together, and we've never done it before.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And you really say to yourself, yeah, I'm going to make lots of mistakes. Let's just hope that I learn from them and everybody learns from them. And, let's work on, making sure that we, can limit their mistakes as going forward. But yeah, I think we're going to make more mistakes than ever in some ways in trying to get through all of this.
Mm-hmm. But we'll definitely understand in the future that it was outside of our control, and we did the best that we could with the tools that we had at hand. And those stay-at-home parents now who are homeschooling their kids, they still may be working from home as well, and they've got plenty to juggle.
Oh yeah. I have a couple of them on my staff, and they're not complaining about the work. you know? And these are these are educated, thoughtful people who work with kids, a lot of them. But being a parent and under these circumstances is really, really tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to give yourself a lot of flexibility and allow yourself to make mistakes and room for error, because that's just the way it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also learn how to lock yourself in the basement when you need to.
Yeah, I think that maintaining an independent routine, other than your partner's routine or your children's routine, is really important for identity to stay strong when we're all a little bit lost.
Yeah, and also just we all need our downtime. We all need our self time, and that's another thing you have to give yourself permission for. Not only to make mistakes, but also I'm a human, and I'm going to be better off if I take a half an hour every twice a day just to myself, just to check in with myself. And frankly, I'll be better off, and so will everybody else around me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for those people who are always sort of thinking about the other person or their family members first, it's important to realize that that's all well and good, but if you're not on your game, it doesn't matter if you're thinking about them first. So you have to be on your game.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yep.
And earlier we were talking about jujitsu, and I mentioned that thank God we got the mats
Right.
so that I could have some kind of sense of normalcy. And the fact that, like, if I were to take this much time off of a skill that takes that much technique, I wouldn't be able to see myself in the future of ever going back. Yes, I would. I'm committed to it, but I would just be so disheartened by that time off. And why I bring that up is because of just fitness and nutrition in general being so necessary for us to focus on right now for our overall well-being and our health too, so that we don't catch the common cold or the flu or strep or bronchitis.
Absolutely. So, moving in particular is something that I think we really have to put into our plan and our schedule. Give yourself the time to move, exercise, however that is that you can do it. Right. You still can take a walk around the block or down the street or whatnot, as long as you're doing it thoughtfully and appropriate distancing. I'm not sure everybody can get mats into their living room, but uh, I think that, as much as anybody can do, to do that is essential. The nutrition piece, I think, in some ways is actually harder. Um, I have people who are joking about now gaining the COVID-19. Um, and I think, that's a real issue. And so, as much as you can be mindful about your eating, um, I think we're all going to eat more than we would typically do if we're, at home. It's there. It's, you're looking for soothing, but to be thoughtful about it as much as possible. And again, planning meals is a good thing to do, right? It's always a good thing to do, but it's particularly good under these circumstances. So what are your meals? If you can line up your week of meals and think about what you're doing. Also helps you think about how to limit your shopping, which unfortunately is important today. And then as we talked about, share it, teach your kids to cook or have them cook a meal and I make it a competition, who can cook the healthiest, tastiest meal, those sorts of things, just get creative in ways that you didn't need to before. And by the way, competition's a great way to stay connected. It's not always bad. It's usually a pretty fun thing, actually.
Mm-hmm. The trend on social media is like, I challenge somebody to do 10 push-ups or 50 bodyweight squats or 5 burpees, and then it gets passed around. And
Right.
while you're talking about nutrition, I'm thinking of one of my connections on social media. They're doing a hashtag COVID cook-off, where
Uh-huh.
they are one-upping each other on the presentation and the quality of food that they're preparing at home so that they can stay connected with a little bit of competition that goes a long way.
Yeah. And I've also seen people who are doing a sort of cupboard version of Chopped, three items out of your cupboard, whatever they are, make a meal out of it. So people are, and the number of amazing, little mini videos I'm getting and memes. I mean, it's great. I mean, this is a good way to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of new songs too.
Yeah, that's right. I'm definitely trying to stay mindful of everything that's happening right now. And I'm very blessed with a general positive temperament and a good attitude most of the time. And I've only experienced a couple of low periods of questioning the future or feeling a little bit of loneliness and isolation. Thankfully, I have a roommate that's also supportive during this time. But what do you have to say to the person who just can't get moving each day and might be stuck in the depths and the rut that they didn't experience, that they didn't expect?
Mm-hmm. But this is a time where you do need to reach out, either to professionals or whatnot for some support and help. And it may not be a professional; it could be, it may be somebody or a family member. But to really be able to say, "I'm struggling, and here's why, and here's what's going on." Again, the best way to get over that hump is to be connected to someone who you trust and care about and can do the same for you. And I mean, the other, piece of advice is, age old, which is, there's so many things that you can be overwhelmed by. And so, to bite off really small pieces. Um, okay, I'm really feeling like I don't want to do anything. Well, can I at least, go and make the meal? Can I, do, what is it that I can do and then build on? I think is really important. But, that old baby steps is a very important approach to this. There's
Mm-hmm.
much to overwhelm you if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, interesting enough, I think the people you're talking about are also the ones who are often glued to the news. Um, uh, in part because they don't want to think about themselves, but also it kind of supports their already, negative, depressed look at the world. So, we recommend that you schedule, again, looking at the news no more than twice a day. It's not going to change all that much. So I think, that can also be helpful.
I got it. Definitely. Absolutely. That's really good advice for our community. And what we like to talk on most is self-awareness. And you mentioned in there that they may be distracting themselves from looking at themselves.
Right.
What kind of a mindset can we have about this period in our lives that we can actually start to look inward at those things that we might be questioning about ourselves, insecure about ourselves, or knowing that we need to work on?
So I think one of the things that both is effective in terms of helping us, de-stress, and can be very useful is journaling. I think that, and for those people who don't like to write or don't, the way to start is just to start again by putting a schedule into place and filling in little notes about how it went for that half day or so on and so forth. But I really do think some form of writing, journaling, whether you can record it on your phone or computer, however you want to do it, is a really good way to start to get a sense of what it is that's on your mind, get a better sense of yourself. But I think that's one of the best ways to approach this. And there's some great, research that shows that, that kind of journaling also really decreases people's stress and anxiety. So it's a win-win all around. And, if you're prone to liking to meditate or do yoga or any of those sorts of things, again, that general mindfulness, focusing on your breathing, clearing your head, are very good approaches to getting a sense of what works for you. I have a woman who was one of my trainees, who is truly a yogi, and she runs a boarding school in the Himalayas. And she just sent out all this amazing kinds of stuff on, how to care for himself from that perspective. So those are also, a great opportunity to also learn about other cultures, frankly, at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you're extremely busy, so normally we take an opportunity for people to contact you, but instead this time, not to overwhelm you, not to put anything else on your plate, I was going to ask you of an additional resource or a place that somebody can go to get headed in the right direction, that you might offer up at this time for our community.
So I think there are a number of really good resources, and so depending on what you're looking for, but I really think one of the best places to start, maybe around your local community center or hospital website that has lots of information, things to do, the reason I'm suggesting local, they'll direct you to to more national, but the local pieces I think are really great, and that also supports the connectedness. And I'm happy to send you links to other things, but I think that's finding them on your own in some ways and doing it that's on the local beat can be kind of enjoyable. On a small note, around here is some of the farmers markets that are now standing up and how they're approaching these things, and very interesting. How they're kind of how you order your food ahead and they have it ready for you, and that there are farmer markets that are operating.
So they're pivoting and they're adapting to the new environment, and they're still providing a service that wasn't there before. so that we can find healthful options locally.
Right. Right.
And if there was one thing that we didn't touch on or that we briefly touched on, you want to expand on, I know in the last few minutes of our conversation, what would that be?
I would say, I'm going to pivot to some concerns that I think, I am worried that as this wears on, and it sounds like it's going to for a while, that, people are going to become increasingly irritable. And I do worry about, violence within the home, within the family, increasing. So all the things that we talked about, I think are great to decrease that. But I would suggest that people take a very hard look at how much they drink. Not only is it not healthy, and we know that, but I do think that, under stress, human beings have found ways to, and intoxicants, since time immemorial. And it's very understandable, but it's, alcohol also disinhibits people. And if you're irritable or sad or whatever, it's going to, unleash some of that in ways that you may regret later. So that would be the one thing that I think is very important right now.
I really appreciate you saying that. And I can completely relate to that. Not a heavy drinker, but if I were to, I definitely would tend to be unlike myself, on top of the stress, on top of isolation, on top of a heck of a lot of boredom. I'm staying creatively engaged, but that can only last so long before it becomes a routine.
Right.
And I just want to say thank you, Steve, very much for your time today. And we really want to thank you and everybody at the hospital for their dedication and their resilience and their fortitude in this time. And we're better off with you than without.
All right. Thank you. And, these kinds of things, or these outreach and these, podcasts, whatever, I think are very important right now. And so anything I can do, I'm more than happy to. I feel, frankly, very grateful that I am busy and I can help other people right now. So.
Yeah, and we're grateful for that too. Well, thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
You will. By Zoom. Bye-bye.
How do we put it in perspective that none of us know what the future holds, and also still kind of maintaining a positive attitude about it?
You just said that none of us knows what the future holds, and that's always true.